U.S. sanctions over the nuclear deal will hit Iran next week. And as the U.S. threatens to punish anyone doing business with Iran, many European firms are withdrawing from the country. And it's average Iranians who are really paying the price as cost of living soar. And Southeast Asia tries to take advantage of trade tensions between the world's top two economies by luring in Germany. And you really couldn't make it up. A cheesemaker in Switzerland wants to improve the taste of his Emmentaler by playing heavy metal and hip-hop to his cheese. This is DW Business. I'm Gerhard Elfers in Berlin. The final U.S. jobs report before next Tuesday's midterm elections shows that employers are still hiring. That's a welcome development for Republicans ahead of the vote. The U.S. Labor Department said American employers added 250,000 new jobs in October, while salaries rose at the fastest pace since 2009. Unemployment held steady at 3.7%. That's a 48-year low. In September, the aftermath of Hurricane Florence weighed on jobs growth. For more analysis on that, we now go to our correspondent at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, Daniel Koop. Daniel, it seems that those who voted for Donald Trump actually are reaping the benefits. We can expect that Trump will claim that just days before the midterm elections. Is he right? Is it all his doing?
Yeah, yes, you're right, Gerhard. U.S. President Donald Trump is not really known to be very modest about himself. So we can be very sure that just days before the midterm elections, he will use every opportunity to talk about the job numbers, and that credits, of course, just go to him. Well, investors actually give him credits for some of his projects. They still call the tax reform and cutting down the corporate tax a really good idea, and do believe that, in fact, this gave the economy a boost and also created jobs. But he seems to forget that many other projects started already under the administration of U.S. President Barack Obama. But one thing is clear, the midterm elections are crucial. The president is currently campaigning at 2, sometimes even 3 locations per day. And also his announcement today of reimposing all sanctions on Iran will be certainly a topic that many of his supporters are going to like. The blue chip index DAX benefited a little bit today because of the president, while there were reports spreading that he wanted to find an agreement about the ongoing trade conflict with China. Shares made a jump for a couple of hours, but after this was not confirmed, they went a little bit down again.
Daniel Koop in Frankfurt, thank you. British and German banks were among the poorest performers in the latest stress test by Europe's top banking regulators. Overall, Europe's banks are showing much better resilience and capacity to withstand financial shocks following the 2008 global financial crisis. Regulators said the European Banking Authority tested 48 lenders, which account for more than 70% of banking assets across the Eurozone. Going to Iran, where the poor are expected to bear the brunt of U.S. oil sanctions taking effect next week. The cost of living has soared in recent months, leading to protests against the government. And the rial keeps falling because of the upcoming sanctions, with heavy demand for dollars among ordinary Iranians trying to protect their savings.
Iranians earning average wages can afford little nowadays. The value of the Iranian currency, the rial, has tumbled. Food imports, medication and electronics are becoming more and more expensive. Many Iranians have little hope of finding a good job. U.S. sanctions have frightened away foreign investors. German companies that recently opened offices in Iran are already pulling out of the country because the Trump administration is threatening to penalize them. The U.S. market is much larger and much more lucrative. Amir Sotoudeh represents the German packaging machine producer Multivac in the Gulf region. It's much more difficult to do business in his homeland because U.S. sanctions have cut off Iran from the international finance system.
Lots of customers now finding difficulty to do the payment to us, and even these days with the current economy situation and because of the mentality happening in the Iran market, Iranian currency is also depreciated towards euro, and it becomes more difficult.
A simple bank transfer from Iran to Germany or in the opposite direction is now a problem. Few European banks are willing to carry out the transactions because all the major financial institutions do business in the U.S. and fear reprisals. Markus Becker-Melsing of the Federation of German Banks says the U.S. sanctions are not the only reason doing business in Iran is difficult. Basically, we can do business in Iran, but we have to be sure that it complies with money laundering and terrorism financing laws. That's very difficult because Iran has relatively little transparency in its commercial sector. There is a lot of state interference in the economy, even by the Revolutionary Guard.
Von Staat, eben auch den revolutionären Garden mit der normalen Wirtschaft.
Given these doubts, a bank would rather stay away from Iran. Commerzbank had to pay billions in penalties for violating U.S. regulations. The choice between Iran and the U.S. is clear for the international finance industry. The risk is simply too high compared to the opportunity to turn a profit in Iran. And the U.S. market is simply too big and too important.